Hello YouTube. This video is about how we went about installing the battery box and shutoff switch in the trunk of my 1949 Chevrolet Fleetmaster Deluxe Gasser. We will be following the rules set forth in the NHRA rulebook in regards to the installation of the battery and the shutoff switch. I'm going to read some excerpts from the book on the rules that pertain to what we did here in the trunk of this car. If you don't want to listen to my reading, I will put in the bottom of the video the time mark of where we actually start the work. The first thing I'm going to read is from section 4A, page 7. Under electrical, it says batteries must be securely mounted, may not be located in the driver compartment. See General Regulations 8.1. Under General Regulations 8.1, batteries. All batteries must be securely mounted, must be of sufficient capacity to start the vehicle at any time. It goes on to say, in lieu of a rear firewall, battery may be located in a sealed 0.024 inch steel, 0.32 inch aluminum, or NHRA accepted poly box. If a sealed box is used in lieu of the rear firewall, box may not be used to secure the battery and must be vented to the outside of the body. Relocated batteries must be fastened to the frame or frame structure with a minimum of 2 3/8 inch diameter bolts. Moving on to the master cutoff. In section A, page 7, under electrical, master cutoff, mandatory on any car with a battery running 9.9 or quicker, any car exceeding 135 miles an hour, or any car where the battery is relocated in the trunk area. See General Regulations 8.4. Under General Regulations 8.4, master cutoff. Mandatory when the battery is relocated or is outlined in class requirements. An electric power cutoff switch, only one, must be installed on the rearmost part of each vehicle and be easily accessible from outside the body. This cutoff switch must be connected to the positive side of the electrical system and must stop all electrical functions, including magneto ignition. It goes on to say, if the switch is a push-pull type, push must be the action for shutting off the electrical system, pull to turn it on. These are excerpts from the rules. I highly recommend that you get the rule book and read the rules for yourself to make sure that these rules apply to the class that you're running in. What you're looking at here is the fabricated floor in the 49 Gasser. This project was completed a while ago, and I'll put a link to the video for that project in the upper corner of this video. What's depicted here is the subframe members that are underneath the floor, the location of the battery box, and the location of the shutoff switch. If you note, you'll see that we drilled holes to mount the battery box and battery directly through the subframe members, and we will be using 3/8 inch threaded rod fed through the holes that are in the subframe. This follows the regulations set forth by NHRA. We had planned on using this poly box for our battery box, but I don't want to have a problem with an inspector because I have no way of proving that it is NHRA approved. So we're going to swap it out and use this aluminum box that measures 032, which meets NHRA's requirements for a battery box. We've taken the aluminum box apart and stripped off the protective coating, and we're going to bolt the box and the battery in with 3/8 inch threaded rod, which is what NHRA requires. Well, they say 3/4 inch bolts, so this is just a long 3/4 inch bolt. And we'll put a flat washer and a lock washer and a nut on the bottom side and tighten them down. Set the battery in place. Take the hole down and put it in. Put a washer on each side and a lock washer. And a nut. Tighten those down. And the battery is held in by 3/8 inch bolts, which is what NHRA requires. Now the box goes in place. And the top goes on top of that. And we have our battery in a battery box that meets NHRA requirements. The next thing we got to do is run some lines from it. What we have to do now is have a place to run the line to, and the NHRA requirements are that everything is shut down with a shutoff switch, so I think we should mount the shutoff switch and run the positive lead, which is the one that's supposed to be interrupted, to the shutoff switch. So we'll mount the shutoff switch right here. And what NHRA says is that the push action on a push-pull shutoff switch has to be in the off position when you push the rod in. So we'll bolt this in and we'll tighten that down. We've drilled a hole in the body for the push-pull rod. We don't want the push-pull rod riding on the sharp edge of the body, so we'll put a rubber grommet in. That the rod slides evenly through. If we put the rod in and fasten it to the switch, the rod's too long. This is the long position, and if we put it in the on position, it sticks out even further. So what we need to do is shorten this rod. So we'll put it in the off position and put the heim joint in the arm for the shutoff switch, and we'll mark where we want this rod to be in the shortest position, because if it's in the on position it sticks further out. So that's pointing far out for the off position, and we're going to have to cut it off there. We'll put the rod in the vise. We'll use a cutoff wheel to cut the rod off. It's a solid aluminum rod, so what we have to do is drill and tap the end of it for the handle. We'll take the push-pull rod and put it vertical in the vise. Take a punch and punch the center of the rod. Take an 1/8 inch drill and drill a pilot hole. I think that's deep enough. Then we'll take a number 7 drill, which is the correct drill for a 1/4 20 bolt, and drill it out. Take a 1/4 20 tap, put a little oil on it. And run it down into the hole. There we go, we're at the bottom. Take a blowgun and blow the hole out, get all the chips out of it. And let's see if our handle fits in the hole. Like butter. Let's go back to the car. Take our push-pull rod and put it through the hole. Put it in the arm for the shutoff. Take the lock nut, put it on the end of the heim joint. And it's 1/2 inch. And we'll tighten it into position. Take our handle and screw it into the rod. And we'd like the handle to be horizontal, so we'll take the lock nut and lock it down in that position. And it works. What we did is mount the marker light, and then we drew a line from the 2 screws that are in the marker across. It's a level line, so all these holes are in a line. These holes are for our external charging posts. And by putting those posts in and the shutoff switch in, we now have places to run our cables to. The purpose of a shutoff switch is so that if you ever have a problem and the track needs to shut your car off, all they have to do is push the handle in and it turns everything off in the car. So what we're going to do is run a cable from the positive side of the battery underneath the floor, come up through the floor, and run to this terminal. Then we'll run everything else from this terminal to power the car. So there is no way the car can run if this is in the off position. We don't want any chafing of the cable, so we'll use grommets in all the holes for the cable. We got a grommet for right there. We have grommets for the positive side of the battery and the negative side of the battery. We'll run the positive cable out this side of the box and through that grommet, and the negative side of the battery out this hole and through that grommet. In order to do that, we have to make custom link cables. So the next thing we got to do is make a cable end. I got to thinking about this battery box. If I put this battery box in right side up, the cable runs through this hole, which won't allow me to pick the box up like that, which means I can't get to the hold down bolts or the side mount posts. But if I put it in upside down, like so, and run the cables out the bottom, then I can lift the box up off the cables. So we're going to turn this box around. With the box in upside down, I can take the top off, and with the cables coming out the bottom here, I can lift the body of the box off, and I have access to these bolts, and the cables will be running out the bottom of the box right here. And speaking of cables, let's go make one. The way I make cable ends up is I strip about a 1/2 inch of insulation off the end of the cable, making sure we don't cut any of the copper that's inside the cable. Slice it and pull the end off so we got a nice clean end. We take a cable end and put it on there, making sure we don't get any of the copper on the outside, and slide that onto the cable and put it into the crimper. This is just a Harbor Freight crimper, and crimp the cable. Now some people solder it, but what you end up with is a cold solder joint, and with a crimper it's not going to come off. And I like to color code the cables, and as we're doing the positive, we'll do red. And we slide that onto the cable. Take our heat gun and shrink down the heat shrink. I don't use a match or a torch because I don't want to have soot on the end. And we end up with a nice cable end. Rather than run the whole length of cable through the holes, I cut it to approximately the right length. Hook up one end of the cable. In this case, we're doing the positive, and we're going to go to the shut-off switch. And we'll just put a bolt on, we'll just put a nut on there to keep it in position. We'll route the cable underneath the car the way we want it and push it up through the grommet. Route the cable through the bottom of the box and up to the terminal on the battery, and mark the cable where we want to cut it off. Cut the cable to the right length. And put a cable end on it. Take the tape off. So we got to strip it, about a 1/2 inch insulation, not cutting too far so that we don't cut any of the copper, like so. Get a cable end. Carefully put it on so we don't spread any of the copper. Put it in the crimper. Put some color-coded heat shrink on it. And shrink it with our heat gun. And now we have a custom length cable made up. Put our cable back in place. Connect up our shut-off switch. And oh, by the way, when you're putting cables on, you always do the positive first and you do the negative last, so that if you short, the body isn't grounded and you won't get a spark. And when you take it apart, you do just the opposite. You take the negative off first, and then take the positive off, so you don't get any sparks. And we'll tighten this up. Go underneath the car and route the cable up through the grommet. The grommet may come out. I don't know. We'll see. Put the grommet for the battery box on the cable, and that'll go like so. And that will go into that slot right there, and when we put the box down on top of it, it'll slide over the top of that grommet and connect up our battery, like so. Now the box can slide down over that grommet and be in the, and we've got it all mounted. Let's do the negative. We'll do the same thing we did with our positive cable. We'll connect up one end, run it, route it the way we want it routed, which is like that. Go underneath the car and mark it. We'll mark the cable where we want to cut it, which is right there, because we're going to connect it right there. While we're under the car, we'll put a clamp on our positive cable so it doesn't hang down. And we have a nice installation for the positive cable, and we're ready to cut the negative cable. We'll slide the battery box grommet onto the custom length cable that we just made. Slide it through the grommet in the floor. Connect it to the battery. Go underneath and ground it to the frame. The cable is the right length, which is a good thing. And we're grounding it right to the frame. Slide our battery box on upside down and engage the grommets like so. Put the top on. Put a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut on our 3/8 inch bolts. Snug them down. And you would think we're done, but we got one more thing to do. We have to run a vent hose from the box underneath the car. The vent hole that was originally at the top is at the bottom now because we've got the box upside down. So I think what we're going to do is plug the vent hole and drill a new hole for a vent hose. So we'll take the top off, take the body off, and go take care of that on the workbench. The plug I have is a weird size. So what I'm going to do is drill the hole out to the next smallest size and then put the plug in. We'll check it to make sure it's not getting too big. Nope, got to go to the next step. Now it still should be too small. Oh, it actually fits, and we're in good shape. Now we got to drill a hole for the vent. We've marked the center of the box where we want the new vent hole. I've blocked up the inside so that I can get a good center punch. We'll take the box out. Drill a pilot hole. Take our step drill. And drill a new hole. Check our fitment. We don't want to go too far. We got a little burr there. We'll file that out. See if our grommet fits. It's pretty tight. I might have to file a little bit. Oh, I think we'll be all right. And try to put our vent hose in. That fits nice and snug. We'll go install it in the car. We've marked the location that we want the vent hose to go through the trunk. And we'll go through the same procedure. We'll mark it. Drill an 1/8 inch pilot hole. Take our step drill and enlarge the hole. Take the burrs off from underneath. Put the grommet in. Put some lubricant on the hose because this is a tight fit through the grommet. And run our vent hose down through the grommet. And we have our vent hose installed. We'll connect up our external charging battery posts with another custom length cable that we've made up. The only difference in a short cable and a long cable is you have to make sure that the ends are pointing in the right direction. So what I do is I actually bring the cable to the location for the second connector and put it on the cable and then carry it to the crimper and then crimp it. And we'll tighten this down. Now, when I run the battery cable to the front for the car, I'll take it off of this terminal so it's on the switch side of our shutoff switch. The only thing left to do with our external charging posts is to run the ground, and we'll take care of that now. We've made another custom length battery cable to hook to our external charging posts, and we'll ground that right to the chassis, just like we did the battery. I should mention that what I'm using for cables is welding cable. It's number 1/0 welding cable. And there we go. I believe we've accomplished what we set out to do. We have a battery box that I believe would pass an NHRA inspection. It's vented to the outside. We have a shutoff switch which will shut all the power off to the vehicle should the track employees need to do that. If you enjoyed this video, there'll be more.